I'm privileged to have Professor here from IIT Bombay, and of course Chandru, who's here from a company called GABS in Chennai, and they're doing some very interesting product development in AI. So I thought we should probably get an input from them also. So we'll generally kind of open it up because I will request Professor to lead us through his own research on what we are doing, and then we'll basically discuss what are your findings, what are your challenges, and as much non-proprietary information as possible you can give us, so that it adds richness to the research. So that's a quick background. So maybe we could just start with a quick round of introductions. I know we've all met everybody informally, but again, to start with myself, I mean, I ran two companies for my sins. One was a company called Aptech, which I ran from 91 to 2001. Then moved to Pune to run a company called Zensar Technologies, typical software exports company, which we grew from 40 crores to 4,000 crores in 15 years. So, and it was primarily around digital. Left that in 2016, set up a small clutch of companies called 5F World. Why 5F? Because that is my life mantra. It's called fast, focused, flexible, friendly, and fun. So we called it 5F World. And now we have a very significant skills company called Global Talent Track under that. A new entity we set up, which is led by Ipsita here, which is primarily for growth advisory, digital marketing, digital advisory, etc. So that's really what they do. And then we have a Center for Artificial Intelligence, which is based out of Chennai, which is both doing research and training for corporates as well as students on technology. So that's really what I do at this point of time. And for my sins, I'm also privileged to be on the board of State Bank of India. So Ravindra and I are plotting the future of technology for State Bank. And of course, he does all the hard work and I take all the credit. So that's a quick background. So Ravindra ji, can start with you and then we'll go.
I'm Ravin Pandey. As the present Deputy Managing Director and CIO of State Bank of India. My role is not in traditional CIO sense. I'm a normal banker, traditional career banker. Before that, I was the Chief Digital Officer of the bank. From 2014 onwards, I was in the area of the digital in one. Obviously, I keep on changing my hats from operation to digital to operation as we grow in my organization. My first experience with the digital was on made head of the merchant acquiring business in 2014, which is the POS terminals. You recollect my then chairman, Madam Bhattacharya, told that तुमको जहाँ भेज रहे हो ऐसे होता है कुछ. That is what it is. It is something like this. I'm sending you to coaches, something like this. We have to be the number one there in the Indian banking space. With the support of my colleagues, by 2016, when I left and went to my operational assignment in Andhra Pradesh, we were the largest acquirer in the country. Then obviously I moved to some places. Then around 2 years, I was heading the payment solutions from the business side of the bank. And then assignment, then become the Chief Digital Officer. And last 5 months, I am the Chief Information Officer. In addition to the normal CIO role, analytics also comes into what we call it an executive support system with AI/ML driven engines, and we do some good job. That's all people say outside bank. That's the role, and it's a large organization. We had our own challenges in terms of technology, in terms of the legacy, but we are pulling it on.
Thank you.
Sir. Hi, Sriranga Rajan. I'm from Aditya Birla. I started my career actually with ITC. I was with ITC for about 13 years.
Which part of ITC, sir?
Every other business except cigarettes.
Okay. So you're safe.
I had about 13, 14 bosses, so different businesses. So I started in Bangalore, went to UK, Germany, Guntur, Hyderabad, Delhi, and then finally back to Bangalore. So all the other businesses. Subsequently joined Aditya Birla. Within Aditya Birla, I've been also with multiple businesses. I started with textiles, then I moved to corporate role where we were talking about is there some central kind of. We started this so-called Center of Excellence. In fact, in that role, I worked with Zensar also for some of the projects.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Then I moved to retail. I was in retail for some time. Now I'm with Pulp and Fiber. Pulp and Fiber is part of Grasim. So I'm technically on the rolls of classroom. I've primarily been only in IT kind of environment, but for a small little brief period where it was more of business and less of IT. That was in ITC. Uh, I'm known as Sri because my name is too long for people
Good.
to pronounce.
Easy. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Chandramoulishwaran. I lead products and IT creation for gas technologies. And the gas technologies, I've been doing the infra management services and application software development and quality assurance for the past 23 years, plus years in case if you don't know about gas. I joined GAVS about 6 years ago, and that is when we conceived this product called the Zero Incident Framework, which is based on AI. And we felt the need for AI technology in the field of IT infrastructure because I spent my 30 years in the IT infrastructure management. Before joining GAVS, I was in Genpact, and I was doing the role of CTO for the IT services business. And then I became the IP creation leader for a couple of years. Before that, I was in Polaris Software Lab about 8 to 9 years, and then HCL Comnet. HCL Comnet was interesting. That's the time when India was flooded with DSATs, and we started communicating with DSATs. So that's a brief about me. Thanks, Ganesh.
So we can call you Chandru rather than Chandramouli.
Chandra.
Very good morning and thank you for inviting me. I'm from a slightly different background. Started my career with engineering hardcore maintenance for around 6-7 years. Gradually shifted to IT in the Y2K boom. Then I was with a manufacturing company for 10 years. And currently I'm with Vocard Hospitals as a CIO, group CIO. So I've seen textile, I've seen manufacturing, I've seen healthcare also. But I feel now with so much of domain knowledge, healthcare is the best place to be in. Because as compared to the other industries, we are still behind technology, still are catching up. Because in healthcare, technology, business is not driven by technology. So that is the basic difference. That is why there is a little bit of gap between an FMCG or healthcare. So a lot of things which can be done. So happy to be where I am.
But I thought with all this COVID and social distancing, even things like telemedicine, that's really taken
They
off.
have
in the last
started.
year. I think that's what.
So the adoption is good.
Is
So
better.
this COVID is actually a boon to healthcare, I think.
Exactly.
Because a lot of things which could not be implemented is now being implemented. People now come from a different mindset. The patients, they want everything at home now. Because they have seen the power of technology and not stepping out of the house and getting a service, which was previously not there. First, if I used to fall sick, I have to see a doctor. I have to go physically. And the doctor was also very adamant. I want to see the patient in this thing. I don't want to see it remotely or a call, not virtual. So the mindset of the patient also has changed because the experience in the last 2 years has been different, and technology is really helped. So a lot of things which could not be achieved, like your telemedicine existed 10, 15 years back, but it was an option. Teleconsultation existed. But since there was no structure of how to capitalize it or how to make a business model out of a teleconsult was not there. It was just, okay, you can't come, we'll give a call, a WhatsApp call. There is no structured this. Now with this, there is structure.
Nice. Very excellent. And what do we call you?
Girish.
Easy.
In fact, we tried this telemedicine because our units are very remote.
Yes.
We tried 13 years ago. We talked about all our connectivity, etc., but it just didn't.
It did because prior to Boca, we loved the hospital. There we were trying in 2000, early 2000 with ONGC Bombay High. So we were trying that connection.
Oh, I see.
So it is not, the concept was always there, but it didn't take off.
Excellent.
Primarily mindset. Mindset.
Yeah, but if I see how the Israelis companies, they don't want, this is not telemedicine. They help in using an AI ML diagnosis the problem itself. To what stage you are.
Yeah, telemedicine complemented with IoT, because if you can't get your vitals, then so next step is your IoT, home care. That you need continuous take either a real-time data or data of your vitals question. And the devices which are available are not, the doctors say, I don't believe this. This is about Chinese. So again, there is a question mark. Whatever the values are being transferred from Bluetooth, are they really worth this thing? So that's the question. So that is why this concept has come. Now it is evolving. I think next 2-3 years it will.
What I was saying is that based on your disease pattern,
Yeah.
even on which they will tell that whether it will spread, it will not spread, it is going where, what
Yes.
it will look like 2 years hence.
Correct. So lot of predictive.
No, I'm surprised you're saying that. Ravindra. My daughter, as you know, runs her own lab in Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York. She's very leading edge in cancer research. And they've been doing exactly this, that if you have a cancer in the liver and it's in remission, they're doing, literally statistical models to show when will it spread, when can it spread, which cell will get affected. So like serious. So I still remember 3 years back, I think 4 years back, I was having dinner with Ginny Doherty, the chairperson of IBM in Bangalore. So she was asking me, that is when IBM Watson was at its peak of. Exactly. So she was, and the Manipal gentleman was sitting next to us. So she's saying, no, he's using the IBM Watson. So she's generally we were chatting like this. And she said, what do you do? So I told her about my daughter. She said, oh my God, she's in Sloan Kettering. They are big users of IBM Watson. So I said, okay. And under the table, I kind of texted my daughter saying that I'm sitting with the chairman of IBM. And she said, my daughter being my daughter said, you please tell her IBM Watson sucks. It's completely useless to us. So I couldn't resist. So I showed it to Ginny. I think this is what she said. And she's so smart. She said, exactly. We need people like your daughter to talk to IBM Watson so that IBM Watson can be more useful to Manipal Hospital. I said, this is a good one. I mean, so the whole transference of natural intelligence to artificial intelligence. Anyway, so welcome, Mr. Mistry. And just as a quick introduction, Girish is from Bokart Hospital. Sipsta, of course, you just heard. Chandra is from Chennai, so actually building products in a company called Gabs. Shri is Grasim Aditya Birla, and Ravindra is the CIO and DMD of State Bank of India. And Professor Pushpak Bhattacharya will introduce himself after you, sir. So you can just tell us who you are so that everybody is.
Right. I work as the CIO of the CD Vice President for Europe. And I'm not very sure if I have to almost so brand. But we are into sort of into health and hygiene, including water purifiers, of course, household. But we are also into vacuum cleaners and what we call as health conditioning, which is air conditioning equipment in a house with heat. So effectively, within a couple of minutes after switching on the air conditioners, it becomes almost like you're within your room. And of course, we are into B2B services also, companies, daily services, and our new product, which is Corona Guard, which basically utilizes, I would say, the features of sunlight, okay, to incubate. I would say, not incubate, but surround the virus and eliminate its veracity, including coronavirus. So, because that's under FDA approval and everything is still going on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we do in Europe. I think our digital journey has been, I think we started in 2018 more and more because we have a very large workforce and a service force, which is on the feet on the street. And the pandemic, I would say, initiated another round of digital innovations, including the fact that there was no correlation between the pandemic and water, but people have become much more conscious about the water itself, what they drink in the house. So we found, I would say, quite a big upside during the pandemic. And we were able to sustain through because there were issues about how do we work with people and everything. But I think all of these things have initiated the digital transformation, which I thought would take 5 years, actually took 5 months.
Awesome.
So it was, I would say, a blessing in disguise.
Thank you, sir. And just to repeat what I said earlier, this is just a series of roundtables we're doing to research the impact of new technologies on organizations.
Right.
So like we always do, we've got people from completely different sectors, banking, what we call it? Manufacturing is good enough. Manufacturing, healthcare, and of course consumer durables. And Professor Bhattacharya will maybe lead it off by telling us about himself, his research, and some ideas on this, and then we can just throw it. And I've also promised everybody we'll finish at 10, so that don't look at your watch, I'm looking at it. Don't worry. Sir.
Good morning, everybody. And my name is Pushpa Bhattacharya. I've been with IIT Bombay since 1988. So I'm a professor there in Computer Science and Engineering Department. And my field of research has been natural language processing. Now, a lot of natural language processing uses machine learning these days. Okay, and it is very, very data driven. So in the early days of natural language processing, we would sit down and create rules. So for example, the whole of AI started with actually natural language processing. Natural language processing is called the forcing function for artificial intelligence. And for natural language processing itself, the forcing function has been machine translation, translating from one language to another. So in 1960s, what happened was that USA and Russia were in Cold War. So each country wanted to know what was the communication coming from Russia to America in Russian, and from America to Russia in English. So English to Russian machine translation became very important in those days. So people thought that it is a very trivial problem. You just sit down with a dictionary, bilingual dictionary, substitute the words, and you get English to Russian or Russian to English translation. But that is not the case, because words typically have multiple meanings and many different translations come. So a story which is told, which is apparently a myth, actually there is no reality in that story, but it brings out the message very well. So there was this English sentence, the flesh is weak while the spirit is strong. So this is a biblical statement, flesh is weak, the spirit is strong. So this was translated into English and was translated back into Russian and back to English. What came out was the meat was rotten and the alcohol was very good. Okay? So this story, there is no basis for this, there is no reality, but it actually underlines the main challenge of artificial intelligence, which is ambiguity. Okay, in computer vision, in speech processing, in language processing, everywhere, in data processing, everywhere, analytics, everywhere you meet ambiguity. And we try to resolve that ambiguity by classification. And classification is one of the foundations of machine learning, the other foundation being clustering. Okay, so you need data, and when we used to create NLP systems, it was based on rules. So we would say that when you translate from English to Hindi, the verb would go to the end. Okay, Ram plays cricket. Ram cricket khelta hai. So plays is in the middle, while khelta hai goes to the end. So there are those kind of structural differences, word meaning differences which happen, but everywhere there is ambiguity. There are multiple options available, and you pick up one of the options. So how do you pick up the option? Now probability steps in. Okay, so you pick up that option which is the most probable option. So this is based on a principle called maximum likelihood. So if the translation of bank is Nadi Tat, which happens in tourism industry, but bank will remain bank in the financial sector. Okay, so in financial sector, the most likely meaning is bank. In tourism sector, it is Nadi Tat. So this way we observe how the data appears, and we apply strong principles of statistics, probability to find out the most possible option. So this is the foundation for AI really. Okay, ambiguity resolution by making use of classification and probability. Now, my main business is teaching and research. Okay, so we are in people making and also in knowledge making. So, so outside organizations come to us because they want people. Okay, so bank would want good employees. Bank, manufacturing would want good employees. So we try to impart high quality education to people. IITs are known for that. And IIT Bombay, year after year, has been the topmost IIT you possibly have seen. computer science is the most sought after discipline in the institute. So now I have been working on natural language processing in all areas. One of the areas which is very relevant to banking, I'm in the board of SAFRAL. It is the technology part of Reserve Bank of India. And I am also the chairman of AI Standardization Committee, which is the Ministry of Commerce's creation. So this particular gathering is very similar to what we do in this AI Standardization Committee meeting. There are people from finance, from manufacturing, from railways, from airlines industry. It's a very diverse group, and everybody interested to know what AI can do for them. So now I'm also consultant for many leading industries and Government of India, Ministry, and so on. So there is one ironical situation which exists. I was mentioning this to somebody here, that organizations want to use AI, and we know that AI has to use data, and organizations are not ready to part with their data. Okay, nobody wants to open their data. So what happens is, I'll not name the industry, they would say that, Professor, this is the project we are giving to you. Have your brilliant PhD, MTech students work with you. Let them create models on public data and give us that model. We'll run it on our setup and give you feedback. So this is only a mirror of the real situation, and there are lots of handicaps to this. We do that all the time. But this is one thing I would like to bring to your notice, since you are also from organizations who are interested in AI. If you're working with academia, see if it is possible for you to open the data for the professors and their students, so that they can do model building in a realistic fashion. So now we also see that predictive analytics is something which all organizations are very interested in. When they have plants running, or a data center running, or loan applications have to be processed, sanctioned, so on. Airlines industry, railways, they want to bring in AI everywhere, and mainly for prediction. Okay, what is the role of AI there? Mainly to see what could malfunction. Okay, how to make things more efficient, and why AI is used there. Okay, we need to really reflect on this point. Why should AI be used there? So the reason is that this input-output relationship is not a closed form equation. Okay, so how much energy do you get from mass is equal to mc square. You multiply that mass by c square, the square of the velocity of light, and you know how much energy you get. So this is a very clear input-output relation which guides your prediction. This is not the case for real-life operations, where human beings are involved, and uncertainties of real world step in. So you do not have closed form equations, but you have to do prediction. Now the question is, why not statistics? Okay, why not correlation? You plot a graph and then extrapolate, interpolate from that. Why not? Okay, maybe you have thought about this answer. The reason why AI is brought in there, and why traditional statistics does not work there, is because of noise. Okay, again, because of ambiguity. For the same input, multiple outputs are possible. Okay, and how do I choose the correct output from these multiple outputs? For an application of loan, okay, the person's credit history, the economic status, education level, family members, all these parameters play a role. Now, from that, you want to predict whether this person should be granted loan or not. So this input can have multiple outputs, in the sense that the answer can be both yes and no. And the yes and no is not black and white really. So there is a score associated with yes and no, and you get some kind of probability value. That probability value can come from a neural network, for example. Okay, feed the data to a deep neural network system, and in the output layer you get what is called softmax values, the probabilities. So this is how the AI steps in for doing a prediction. One more important point here is the point of federated learning. Okay, so organizations are not very comfortable parting with the data, but what they can do is that they can train machine learning models in their setup with the help of researchers, academicians, and so on. And now these machine learning models can be taken up And these machine learning models are put together to train another machine. You can call this a meta learning situation. And that machine can interact with all these local machines, maybe one in ICICI Bank, another in State Bank, another in Canada Bank. Let this meta learning system interact with all these machine learning models and then do prediction. Data is not open, but machine learning parameters are open. So this is called federated learning. Okay, so this is how.
Just an interruption. To go back to your earlier point.
Yeah.
If the data is not open, will it give the required intelligence to federated learning?
No, it will again be an approximation. Okay, if I could get the data of, let's say, State Bank of India as such, and then create a create a machine learning model, the amount of authenticity that will exist in that is different actually. But this approximation we have to take seriously because it is a reality. Organizations will not open their data completely. Okay, and even if they give the data, that data will be old. Okay, noisy, imperfect, incomplete, and so on. So then the summary of what I said is that it is important to hire good people. Good people come from academia. Okay, good institutes, good professors. I think we can take the credit of creating good people which can serve the society and organizations. The second point is academia specializes in creating knowledge. Even if it is artificial and some kind of model building, still they are useful in real life if you can update the model properly, you can scale it up. So we publish and we are aware of how the field is moving. So academia can help organizations in that matter. I don't think it is very easy for organizations to keep track of how the field moves, which is moving very fast, by the way. The second point is that data is very, very important. And from data, we train deep neural network models, traditional machine learning models, to finally get the probability. And it is maximum likelihood estimate, which is at play. So these probability values guide the prediction process. It is also possible to create machine learning models locally and make them interact with each other through meta learning and federated learning. And finally, it is ambiguity which needs to be resolved with data and probability. So that is our specialization. And that is what I have been doing for last about 25 years. Thank you.
So would you have any point of view on which sectors in India are actually ahead of the curve in terms of using predictive analytics and AI based on that? Logically, one would assume financial services, but I don't know whether it's true.
Yes. So here maybe my knowledge would be limited, I guess, but from my interactions with various organizations as part of AI Standardization Committee, I don't know if anybody will really believe me. Railways are very, very keen on artificial intelligence, and I believe they are making very good progress.
Really?
Yes, Indian Railways, and followed by that would be banking sector, which is what I hear from my meetings with RBI, Safran.
Great. Thank you very much. Just talking AI ML is no longer important, and every process is AI and ML enabled. So let's not even talk AI and ML. I'm saying from that extreme. But as we all know, that is one area, and of course, cloud itself was a mystical area some time back. Today, I think everything is going mainstream on cloud, and AI and AR, and of course, what Zuckerberg is now going to do with immersive reality in Meta. So I think we're all excited to be part of this revolution. So the reason for these sessions is to say, okay, what are the new horizons of new technology? And most important, how are people really using it, assimilating it, making it part of your organization? So that's the series we are really doing. And I recently, about 6 months back, published a book which we can send you a copy, which is called Digital Success. That look, what is it that makes organizations succeed with digital transformation beyond technology? And of course, we came up with a thesis which says technology, processes, all the customer employee journeys, data and analytics, AI, ML, etc., etc. And finally, culture. I mean, you get a healthy mix together, that's what makes it happen, and it's not technology. So I think that's the background. So we are working towards publishing some more thought papers on what does it take. And this is what they call Chatham House rules. So we are recording the session so that we can kind of refer to it later, but no attribution. So I mean, we're not ever going to say that, look, somebody said this or somebody said that. It's just to get a general discussion. So that's broadly what the background is. I'll kind of follow. I think what we're really interested in doing is how many companies or how many industries have moved towards the whole predictive prescriptive analytics regime. And as I mentioned earlier, AI ML is not something we want to focus on, but is there a use that you are seeing of AI and ML and what you're seeing? Anybody? We will request each one of you to just, and as I said, there's no particular method that we want you to adopt, but whatever experiences you've seen, whatever reading you've done, it'd be lovely to get your inputs.
So, I come from very traditional manufacturing sector, and actually, there's a mindset of no. Okay, so if I go to somebody in the plant and say, "Would you want to do this?" The arguments, the responsibility, मैं 36 साल से काम कर रहा हूँ, तुम क्या सिखाओगे? And that's the kind of attitude. Having said that, today, slowly coming into the competitive zone, where you are saying Chinese products are coming, qualities are changing. Earlier, the attitude was, तो पैसा दे दो, माल देखा जाएगा, I'll give you whenever it is ready. I mean, today it's not that case. So I think people are understanding that we need better quality, we need better customer service also. So I think what we have tried to do, a couple of things that we have tried to do, and it's seemingly working very well for us, would be we have come up with some kind of soft sensors. Typically, if I get a product, I will send it to a lab. This lab will give me results after 8-10 hours. Then my corrections will start only after 8-10 hours, or maybe more. So we made a soft sensor now. We say I'm able to predict what kind of quality with this kind of parameters, and every 15 minutes it's giving me a prediction. So I'm able to correct my process line with this kind of immediate correction. What we have kind of been able to push through is to say that if this correction happens, what kind of better quality are you getting? So my A plus grade is going up by 7%. Even if it goes by 4%, I think my entire IT cost is kind of delivered. But this is done real time. It is real time. Background is that I have DCS etc. on the shop floor. Then I have an intermediate layer called Aspen Tech. So data is coming into Historian, so I'm getting data. Using this data, I'm trying to, what he was suggesting of neural networks, we're kind of doing that. And I'm able to predict what quality will come. And so where is it going wrong? So the guy on the shop floor is able to kind of keep changing the parameters.
Oh, really? Wow.
Online. Next step would be closed loop. We want to kind of first see how this works. We've done this in 2 plants now. We have 11 plants. One in Indonesia and one in India. And only one parameter. It's called OP, oil pulling unit. And I don't know if we can explain what is that. But for oil pulling unit alone, we've been able to do this prediction. There are 7 such kind of parameters. Moisture, and some other couple of things. Okay, so oil pulling unit alone is giving me 7% increase in gradient, A plus grade. So if we say, can I get all these 7 parameters put together? How will the process line improve? I think we're going to talk of big savings. The way we have tried to work in this environment is to everywhere be able to tell him that, sir, I'm giving you 5% more. Conservative, at least 2.5% more. So he's also kind of interested. We want to make him lead the, rather than I say, it's a push kind of. We don't want push doesn't work. So you've got this kind. Another area, maybe asset utilization. We're talking of how you can plan your chillers, etc. smartly. Can there be predictions? And so we are saying we're saving so much of energy and so on. So people are getting more and more excited about such kind of stuffs. So we want to do that. That again we worked in, there's a plant in a place called Villa in Gujarat. So that's our latest plant. So most of the things that we try and do new things will be in that plant because it is that much more amenable or receptive. Older plants are more difficult to get by. So we do in Villa, prove it, show it to everybody that it is delivering business benefits, and then roll it out to other plants.
I see. And any technologies you're partial to, Sri, in terms of whatever you're trying to do? Okay. Any technology platform or something that you're using? Or is it more homegrown?
The first one, of course, soft sensors are primarily homegrown.
Okay.
Second one, we have a partner from Bangalore who has developed this whole thing for me, where he's able to take data again from Aspen Tech and the sensors that I put on the ground. And clubbing these two, he's able to kind of give me visibility. We started with first visibility, then we are saying an algorithm. Algorithm, of course, my plant guys have kind of given the algorithm. And then we say, based on this, what should be load factor, which cooler should I shut down, which is more efficient, and so what kind of loading can I do. So we're talking of saving about 2000 kilowatt hour every day. That's the kind of numbers that people are talking of. So if it works well for 6 months in Save Life, then I will kind of more or less blindly roll it out to all the other plants.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks, Shiva. Ravindra, you said?
So, Vatul, I will agree with Bhattacharya. The basic problem in today's AIML is not a question of having the requisite technology, but the three fundamental issues which we face in the bank and large data is, one is the adoption, man employee. That is what is called it as digital learning or creating a digital culture within the organization. And second is the data governance. Because any legacy, if you want a large data, you have to go to the legacy organization. If you go to the legacy organization, then we have to create a data governance structure. And third and most important is you need some storehouse, that is the data warehouse. What we have the data warehouse, majority of our data warehouse are old, not attuned to the explosion in the data which we are getting as of now. So I give an example of SBI in this regard. We started, I think, 2-3 years back itself, the data governance principles. Okay, so we created an office, we created a data architecture, all this entire data governance principles we built around the bank. Even 3 years sustained, and since it was to be pushed for any AML model to be successful, the chairman of the bank and the top management of the bank meets very regularly to do it. This is one fundamental principle which all of us will face who are data rich. Now the second issue is in terms of the data warehouse. This is one area also we feel that we all should look into the next gen data warehouse. Particularly if you have a very large volume of data, whether it is structured, unstructured, or you want to get from anyone. Because as Professor Bhattacharya has told, if you get a garbage data, you will only get the garbage output. In SP, and the third important is what he called is the data scientist or upskilling of including data scientist. So if you had a data scientist, his skills may be as of now current, but 4 years henceforth is out of the market. So upskilling of these are the large problems we are facing. Now if you tell in terms of State Bank of India, we have used AIML in literally all spheres. Whether it is an asset side, just give you a ballpark figure. It's a public figure, so no issue for me to share with it. During the last quarter, on a pure asset-backed loan, we have disbursed 28,000 crore. This is public figures. Customer do not need to visit the branch, nothing. But then when we go deep into that, we feel that no, this needs to be revised again. Because what is happening in AIML, your adoption will increase if your data, your leads, that output is pointed. If you want to see, AIML, use of AIML should not be in a carpet bombing. It should be on a personalized bombing. I think AIML needs to go to that level. Now, if I say I generate a lead of, any lead I generate, it is in few lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs. So my branches says, boss, kya hai? This all, how can I touch with this customer? So how can I refine? To refine this lead, again, these basic skill sets of your data warehouse, your data governance, your data goes into the systems, correct, curated, sanitized, is due required to that. We have used this MIML in terms of every sphere. We can predict the fraud in the branches. Which is a fraud-prone branches. We can't predict. We have certain, based on our old internal audits and all, with the pattern. Now we are trying to develop
what you call it as an intelligent voucher analysis sample report. See, now in the today's digital world, 80% of my transaction is not, 85% of my transaction is not on a physical mode. It just hits me. I don't know when it's going to hit me. How we are trying to build up a sample that if this transaction hits us before hitting or the moment it hits, I am aware, the bank is aware this is a suspicious transaction. I give an example. And since it is a closed room, please don't take me, I'm not casting any aspiration or anything. Certain geographies of India, we know that these are all fraudsters are there. They are very intelligent people minded. So all intelligence are there in few pockets of this country. If account does not have an balance, all of a sudden you get tuck balances. Credit is coming through a UPI, through a digital means. It should raise an alarm. So these type of models we are continuously building. In fact, we have built what we call it as the footfall reduction model in the branches. How can I reduce the footfall? To reduce the footfall in the branches, I need to know the behavior of a customer. Customer comes for what? In fact, around 4 years back, we did this analysis and we have realigned our counters. If a customer comes, he wants what? That should be the first counter. So he comes, goes and goes. Then, based on an analysis, I won't call it as a very advanced level of AI/ML, but based on an analysis, we also know which month, which time, which services will be used more. So I will increase my manpower on those counters. So these are now in NPA management also. Sir is aware that in early warning signal, earlier we have a rule-based model, what we call basic, fundamental rule-based digital model. Now we are moving into an AI/ML model, whereby based on the cash flows which comes into the account, we are able to predict. And obviously, in the banking industry, human intelligence cannot, be substituted by any AI/ML models, because unless our data is perfect, and it is very large. The second challenge which we are facing is if you are trying to get a data from the social media, then it misleads the entire thing. Even if you do not visit, suppose I wanted to push for a loan for vacations. You don't visit Maldives. You cut and paste and put the photograph in your social media that I visited Maldives. I don't know how AI/ML is going to remove this ambiguity. This is what is happening. So stop using the social media also in this area. There are various issues we are doing. We had around 40 registered AI/ML models running very successfully. One, this asset-based model I've already told. We have also generated a model from my branches. Cost to income ratio is primarily which product you should sell based on your behavior, based on the geography, based on the pattern. There we try to get the data from the sensors. We try to get the data from the industry associations, from other data sources. These are all we are doing. But these challenges are still there, which we are facing. And the bigger challenge now we are facing is the deluge of data. How to manage those data? That's also a challenge we are getting. So I think, in fact, this your area of federated learning looks me good. Something in me has seen it just fork out in everything. I think it's a good. We'll try to imbibe this.
So, no, thank you. That was very good. So.
So I think we have started utilizing AI. I think a couple of things which we do here at Performance. And one of the things is the intelligent voice bots for WhatsApp right now. I think we didn't realize that WhatsApp was such a large user base in this country. And when we opened up that channel, we had to actually increase our number of call center seats, okay, because it actually went from, so instead of calling the call center, when you do the WhatsApp, the bot answers. With learning with the AI engines learning over the last 6 months, we've actually found that more customers are using it in a better manner because you can start a conversation, stop it, and start the same conversation again. And that was a learning which we had, and which was quite, I would say, we were surprised with the amount of people utilizing WhatsApp in this country because it allows you also to talk in the language which you want. And the bot is still learning because it is, but again, the problem is what are the punchline words? Because when the customer connects with you, they utilize certain linguistic associations. So they may say, okay, I want you to service this thing, but also can you tell me about your other product? Okay, and this is where we are still struggling, I would say. I would not say that we are there at all. To understand that the customer wants two things, not just one. And identifying those particular, I would say, phrase spotting, okay, which I think we are still struggling with. And we're trying to see how we can utilize things like neural networks and everything to try and sort that out. So that's one part. The second part is we are utilizing this now, the AI ML engines, in order to understand the propensity of a person to buy an annual maintenance contract. And I think this is where the largest part of the pie lies. Because I can say that now it's more or less public information, but we have about 2 crore customer base in this country. Our service agents basically go into a kitchen almost every second of the day. So that's the level of which they go into. So half of this space, we know that there is an AMC. The other half have bought our product but moved away to some other operator.
So some third-party local.
Some third-party operator, and I think that's where we are utilizing, the manufacturing, the chip-based technology in order to ensure that it's genuine products are being spare parts are being sold, and that is a significant issue right now also in this country. But I think we are utilizing the AI engines just to understand the predictability or the propensity of a person to buy. Okay. Successful, I would say, between 30 and 40% right now. Okay, it is still, because again, it's the data. Okay. And so the person who buys the product is not actually the person who calls you for the service. Okay, or the person who's actually, because of the proliferation of mobile in this country is so large that a household could be only of 2 people, but there could be a third person calling you for that household to get a service done, right? So we have, we were quite amazed in certain situations where we found the maid of the house were actually calling the shots of when the service should be done, not the owners of the house sort of thing. So all of these things, I think the data, the learning part of it, and how do you utilize machine learning and AI. We started this process because we utilize, we are on Azure, Microsoft, so we utilize their product range, the data warehousing and everything. But it's still a question of how do we ensure that the data which is coming in, which we have, plus the social engineering, which we do, because people can call it, people can send a WhatsApp, people can send an SMS, people can send an email. Okay, we have Instagram right now getting more and more utilized higher and higher. And there could be somebody who walks into one of our sites and says, I want to do this. How do you correlate all of the data? Is still a very, very big question which we have. Because the amount of data which we collect, and fortunately or unfortunately, this is considered PII data. So when the IDPA rule comes in, the regulations, how do you protect the data?
That's true.
Right, because all of this data is available on the mobile and the front end. So we're trying to see how basically we can restrict this data also. So we are happy to work. In fact, I'm happy to hear Professor talk about this. We want to work with anybody who is able to provide us modeling on how to utilize this data. Because we find people having data knowledge is one of the biggest challenges in this country. We're just not able to find it. Or we may find the person, and as you said, 3 months later they're outdated. So that's one of the biggest problems which we have. So now we're literally utilizing analytics as a service. So we don't go with the one person, we go with a company and say, this is your job. You aren't in it all the time, so utilize it. And this is how we are trying to utilize AI and ML. We're quite successful in certain parts. We want to bring in voice bots now, complete voice bots. But again, the challenges are, how do you ensure that when the AI engine kicks in and starts learning, it's learning the right things? You know, it should not be like what Microsoft did in the US when they started the bot. 1 day later, they shut it down because the bot learned that Donald Trump was an idiot, right? Okay, and it was quite annoying to find out that the bot was learning the wrong things, okay, and repeating that to the customer.
Or the right things at the wrong time.
Right, that I think
That's very interesting. But you said, I mean, I just want to touch on one point. Analytics as a service. Are there enough partners in India that you're getting for that?
Not very many.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. We have started to utilize a company who's providing the basis, because we have to keep turning the customer data and making it refreshed. That means, you know, as I said, initially when the mobiles came in, we actually limited it ourselves by saying, if you buy a product, it should be linked to a mobile. All of a sudden we found five products being bought. You can't link it to that mobile. So they created dummy mobiles in the system.
Okay.
Right? Now the problem is, how do you take all that crap data? Customer is right, but the mobiles are wrong because all of them have 88. So we are utilizing social engineering methodology to enrich the customer data, just to understand that this is the right customer we are talking to, and the probabilities are getting utilized in order to ensure and make a family tree of each individual customer. Because my plan is even to make a customer tree of our equipment. We want to understand the life cycle value of that equipment.
Okay. Wow. No, that's very leading edge. Amazing. Girish?
So everybody is talking AI and ML now. It's good to reduce cost and boost revenue. Actually, we are sitting in a place where we can make a difference and save lives. So that is where we come.
Absolutely.
So one thing I would like to mention is, Gauri pointed out, data privacy and security is a very big challenge, especially in the hospital industry. So that is one of the reasons why we are not able to generate a lot of clinical data. Now let us segregate between what is available in clinical and what is not clinical. So let me start with non-clinical. What is available? Because in non-clinical we have structured data, and AI and ML will only work when you have a structured data. So there is a lot of things which is already happening on the non-clinical side, starting with the patient registration, where we have the demographics captured. Second is, as rightly said, social media. So a lot of plugins which are available with Instagram, Facebook, and other social media, where we are capturing the data, who has visited, from which demographic, decode. So the need of the hour for the hospital is patient engagement and acquisition. So any hospital doesn't have a huge database of patients. For us, patients is the end customer, so I say patients. So over a period of time, we have collected a lot of patients whom we don't want to use. And second is, we want to also capture through social media who has visited, for what specialty, what region, what geography. So that is one thing which is already working. And as rightly said, WhatsApp is the new, because the response we get from WhatsApp is very high as compared to the SMS. All the feedback mechanisms, first we used to have a SMS sent or email sent. Now again, I'm talking from the hospital industry per se, not only as a worker, because just to clarify that. So now what every hospital is doing is have an enterprise WhatsApp account where you can have attachments. So that is a basic difference. Because the person will not go to his email and see this. In SMS, you can't have attachment. If I want to send a bill to a patient, so WhatsApp is very easy. and you can also know the feedback. So it's a two-way communication. SMS is just a one-way communication. So having an enterprise account for WhatsApp is the same thing. Now coming to what is available in non-clinical. So basically, when a patient steps in, he wants to know what is his billing, probable billing, estimate. So how do we do that? So it's all mapping of your clinical and non-clinical data. So whenever a patient comes, obviously he may be a repeat patient. He has gone under through. We have some inputs of what was his past history. He may carry some records of investigation. So he wants to know what would be done. So now this is being done through AI. There are a lot of startups who are working on that, who will generate. It can't be accurate, obviously, but it will be near accurate. So a patient knows when he wants to get admitted. Okay, this would be his probable bill, and okay, he can talk to his. If it's a planned activity, he can talk to his insurance.
But tell me, if the bill ends up being 3 times what the probable bill was initially, do you have a problem with the patient? कि आपने ये बोला था नहीं हो रहा है.
See, what happens is, in case of unplanned, there is a possibility.
Exactly.
But in case of planned, if you want to go angioplasty or graphy or it's planned, so you know what to expect.
True.
When does a bill go for DOS? Because when you come in an emergency, so you get admitted, so you say, "Arey, मेरे को bed चाहिए." So whatever class is available, because every rates are associated with class. If I am in a single room, all rates are associated. So that time you don't see what is my eligibility of my insurance, what is this thing. So you just want to get admitted. So there, and again, if you come in an emergency, diagnosis is not there. So there may be multiple problems. You may come for a orthopedic, but due to cardiac you can't do the orthopedic. So there are multiple permutations.
Amazing.
So this is one, and second, insurance is now a lot of AI and ML is into insurance based on the data what is available of the patient. Because we also are trying to do a family history assessment, see what are the chronic diseases, the parents, and also the genetics amongst that is there. So how to map those clinical and non-clinical insurance is doing a lot of testing. So that they can tell, okay, you may need this insurance, etc., etc. So predictive analysis based on what treatment you have taken, your family history. So insurance is now already RPA is there in insurance for the claim process, because claim is one of the biggest pain areas in the hospital. Because at the time of discharge, you are stuck. The doctor has certified you 10 minutes before, but your claim and all those things not, because there are certain you are eligible for this, and the billing, the mapping of the investigations, the medication to the claim, that is a problem. So now this is being taken care of a lot, but still there is not. So claims, insurance, this audit. Now coming to clinical. So as I said, non-clinical, we are not able to capture all data, especially the EMR and the prescription, because what happens is doctor is very scared about the data privacy, security. He will say, what is the guarantee this thing will not be this? So one is that, and secondly, doctor is not supposed to do the entry of the data. So this is the basic difference between a hospital and other industry. It's a matter of option. You say, I'll just write down paper, आपको जो करने का करो. You do an OCR, you do a voice recognition, whatever you do, or you give me a person, that person will enter. So this is one of the challenges, especially in Mumbai, because you have consulting doctors. You have one doctor associated to multiple hospitals. Unlike in South, where there are resident doctors and they are forced to do it. But again, a doctor, it's a matter of choice. The doctor and the nurses will say, patient care is my first job. My second job is to enter data. So again, the challenge at the clinical end is capturing raw data. So there are a lot of speech to text. It's evolving. So now we are able to capture much more data what we used to capture 2-3 years back. Thankfully, for this pandemic, we are able to do a teleconsult and all those, which were and all the prescription were done online. So this has helped to evolve this industry to capture more of clinical data. And a lot of startups who are utilizing your voice to
Correct.
see what the voice is one, and there's a face recognition where they can use the face, voice, and obviously your saliva also. So if you see COVID, it's just a swab.
Correct.
So these three they try to utilize voice, face, saliva, and all to see the health condition of a particular patient.
No, amazing how much progress is being made. Right?
Sir, in fact, face also we did in our branches, the pilot basis, to know whether the customer is satisfied. But we ran into the PII issue.
Ah,
If
naturally.
the customer has not consented, how can you read his face? In fact, sir, this new privacy law which is coming, data privacy law, which is Indian data privacy law. I don't know after coming with that what, because they say that I need to consent the data. I have a right to withdraw the data. I have a right to give you curative consent, not for the whole consent. In fact, I think the parliamentary committee for this, they came to our data center also to look at this. So there I raise this issue. I see if you make it so stringent, that going forward is okay. If you take it the back seat, then my entire AI model is, oh, I have to go to the 40 crore customer's mind to say, but you consent. And then three quality. I can withdraw also. If they withdraw, how can I expense the data from the system? Because if
you look at GDPR in Europe, that's exactly
That
AI will
is-
go for a complete toss because even consent is not good enough. It has to be informed consent.
inform.
How do you prove informed consent? It's really.
So that is another issue I said for. That is also challenge which models will face.
No, I agree. Chandra, any thoughts? I mean, you've listened to everybody and you guys have done more work in this area than anybody else.
Very interesting. In fact, I'm happy to hear the challenges from the distinguished guests, the challenges that we have gone through that. And Professor talked about NLP. 5 years ago, when the term structured or unstructured came, everybody had a definition that the data that comes from RDBMS is structured, the data from the rest of the system is unstructured. For example, a log. But actually, we realized that any data that the system provides is a structured one. It can be a log, but it gives that one. Only the human generates unstructured language, and there is a difficulty in understanding how to decode that and make use of that. And AI cannot dismiss the language or the inputs from the human. For example, in case of AI, the IT infrastructure, the user raises a ticket. When he raises a ticket, he can type. Different people type differently. He sends a mail, he types differently. So we have built an NLP algorithm in this product to understand what the user expresses as part of his concern and then decode the problem and then provide the right resolution for that. That is one thing. Second thing, Professor, you also talked about no data, and Mr. Ravindra, you talked about deluge of data. Okay. Let me touch the no data. I think we were talking about the breakfast, how our experience from the PLC controllers where we are not able to get the data. So in case of IT operations, we felt that the monitoring tools were not able to provide the data for the AI to predict. So we built our own monitoring tool to generate its own data. We built our own log collector to collect the data from there and eliminated the need of dependency on other monitoring tools or other systems to provide the data. That is one. Next thing, the moment we do that, then there is deluge of data how to do that. So then we actually built a platform that can actually connect to any sources that provides any format of data and in real time, and then starts accumulating them and make use of that. If you actually look at the platform, we have built a system where the data collection is real time. The data prediction on that, everybody talked about prediction. Data prediction on that is also real time. The system is able to actually predict what is going to happen to your system in 30 minutes of what it would happen for the next 6 hours to 6 days or anything. So we use various algorithms for linear data and non-linear data. We actually classified that and we bring that. And everybody talked about prediction. So you talked about prediction of fraud and you talked about prediction of patient engagement. The model that we have built here is actually agnostic of any domain, agnostic of horizontal. It actually consumes the data and understands whether it is linear or non-linear, comes at a frequent interval or different intervals, synchronous or asynchronous. Accordingly, it actually predicts an outcome. So the same model that we have built can be used in bank, can be used in hospital, can be used in, you talked about predicting the health of the system or predicting the quality of the product, right? The same model can be used. That's how the product has been built. So what the product does is it actually collects the data from the servers and network devices and storage boxes in a typical IT environment, understands how it has been behaved. In healthcare, we talk about 4 key vitals, right? We always relate a system equivalent to a human. There are 50 to 100 different vitals that actually govern a human body. Similarly, there are about 200 to 300 parameters that govern the health of a system. The right one, the optimal value is different for different systems. So what is the right value for server X? What is the right value for router X? That is what this AI model learns by continuously looking into the past historic data and fixes this is probably a baseline. This is a snapshot for this device. Anything beyond this is an anomaly. That anomaly may create a problem. That's how we actually predicts and provides the insights in advance so that either the human or the machine can take the remedial action and it makes the system continuously run. That's about this platform is. Core center is AI ops, but whatever is required to run the AI ops, the data or the discovery, everything is part of that platform. I'll stop here.
No, amazing actually. I mean, my doctoral work is in knowledge management, and I keep remembering that old statement saying how much you have to know how little you know. So I think sessions like this always remind me of that. But absolutely amazing, and I'm quite encouraged to find that so many of you are already thinking deeply about AI and ML. And to your point, Ravindra, as they keep saying, artificial intelligence cannot be a substitute for natural stupidity. So that you can't overcome. But I mean, beyond that, I think the uplift you're giving on predictive, prescriptive is absolutely amazing.
You just wanted to say one thing.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Pleasure.